Welcome, everybody. It's time once again for the next chapter with Charlie Hedges as he explores turning the page on his life and yours. Hey, Charlie.
Hey, Paul. Today is going to be a very interesting close of the year podcast. Our personal life coach, Dena Crowder, and I will wrap up 2020 by reviewing my personal year and trying to determine what essential life wisdom lesson did I learn this year. Dena Crowder is the best at digging deep into the inner self to help determine wisdom lessons learned in life. And that's what this show is called, 2020, the Year of Wisdom, strangely enough. So today, I will participate with Dena Crowder in a Dena Crowder designed life learning exercise, which she will take me down a road to discover what wisdom I may have gained from 2020. This process is always so fun and just a bit scary because the truth that emerges may be pleasant or it may be a significant challenge. But either way, it's truth and we need to pay attention to it. So for today's episode, I'd like you to know that I plan to enter the show about 5 minutes into the conversation. You won't miss anything. Dena is just beginning her overview process. But before the conversation, re-explain or re-describe a bit about Dena. Dena Crowder is known as the most innovative strategist and consultant for leaders and creators. Her clients include Grammy and Emmy Award winners, CNN heroes, founders, writers, performers, educators, and upstarts from every industry. Her latest achievement is Dena participated in a TEDx talk titled, "The Power Is You." Now, I'm wondering how many of us are feeling that power in quarantine today. Some are feeling the power, some are struggling, and that's what we're going to talk about. So, Paul, let's join Dena already in conversation with me as we begin the next chapter with Charlie. So, Dena, before we get to analyzing me, which I will most surely, even though we have a briefing podcast, I will still put off looking at me as long as possible. Tell me about the power labs that you are conducting all over the country today. I think it's a brilliant idea. Can you explain what those are about?
Absolutely. Before I do, though, I would love to reflect to you, Charlie, and all of your listeners that I don't see bad parts in you or in any of my beloved clients. I see parts, aspects, and some are more, let us say, integrated and whole than others. The process is, you described a digging process, a deep inquiry, and when we do that, we're not looking to identify anything as a bad and wrong. We're looking to see parts that don't match, that are fragmented. That's the word that I like to use. Or a simpler way to even think about it is these aspects that are out of step with present time and maybe not able to give and receive love or contribute and be contributed to. And my job is to shine a light on those parts, not to malign them or punish them, but to help you integrate them, bring them into a healthy fold.
You know what? You know a word I've been brought into my lexicon lately, and it sounds very much like it fits with what you're doing, and it's alignment with, sort of a core self, sort of a core sense of values of who you are. Would you think that's true?
Yeah, alignment, and core, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's it's fascinating. Now, you said something that got me interested, and as my notepad is missing, and I don't know what's doing with that because I now can't remember the question I wanted to ask.
No, you asked me about the Power Labs. And
oh, yes.
You asked me about the Power Labs.
Yeah, explain the Power Labs to us.
The Power Labs are small, immersive groups, labs, if you will, for as short as a couple of hours and as long as a couple of days, that allow people to come together in an intimate fashion, people who are very different walks of life, different races, religions, backgrounds, but to come together around a single topic to have a transformation in their own belief system and come away not only with a new perspective, but that word we just used earlier, wholeness, with a much more whole feeling on the inside and ability to take action on the outside. Now, the one that you came to, Charlie, was in the springtime when all of the racial issues and conversations were coming to the fore, spring of 2020.
Right.
And in that lab, we explored what it really means to be in power and to embody power in the racial conversation of this country, America. And the purpose of that is for people to walk away, so you can speak to this as a participant, whether this is true, to walk away, when I say a new perspective, to walk away from that saying, wow, I not only learned something new about other people who I think are different, that can cause me to feel related to them as a human being and have compassion for them, but I also am able to take different action in the world in a way that leaves the world better than I found it.
I like that. You know, I discovered with the people, because there were male, female, different races, and as I said, different genders, and yet there was a common theme of where almost it was like vitriol is off the table. We're not going to talk about that. We're just going to say, here's my questions. Here's what I don't understand. Can you explain this to me so I can understand it better? And there was appreciation that there was a heart of goodness in everybody in the room. There was not a heart of evil or destruction or bringing down anybody, but there was a heart to understand how. I'm not sure that that's true of the population in general. What do you think?
It may be buried very deep down, Charlie. There somewhere. It's been covered over like a lamp that was left out in Grand Central Station for 100 years. It's covered over by distractions and dust and confusion. I do believe that deep down it is there, but when you place fear and anxiety and tension and misperception and some even deliberate denials and lies on top of that core, then you're dealing with a different frequency.
Yeah, fear and lies are, they strike me as a prominent issue that's going on now. That's why we have such divisiveness, is if there is no trust on it, because there is the assumption that the leadership on one side, whatever they're saying is a lie from some people, is the truth from others, and then it's the fear of my security or my continued insecurity. There is this fear that I need something and that the government is the only thing that's going to help, and we're in for an interesting time.
Yes, this is going to be an adventure, because no matter where you stand, there is another half of the country that isn't standing with you.
Yeah.
Right?
I know.
And that's a huge. Here's the thing. I've been talking about how before the election, I was saying no matter who wins the election, there will be pain and suffering. It will not be equally distributed. However, everyone will experience pain and suffering, no matter who is winning the election, because the level of enmity is so great, and as you just said, the level of distrust. So whoever the president is, even if it's the president sitting in the office that you voted for and are happy is there, you have half of the country that is going hell for leather to undermine that person, their agenda, but also the entire other, I would say, the other agenda of that half of the nation that isn't going your way.
That's so disconcerting, and just the idea that you just said of going your way is just an assumption that my opinion really rules over any other opinion. And, my way is not necessarily the right way or the best way.
We need a lot of power labs, Charlie. We need people all over the country coming to a power lab and having an experience of the humanity and perhaps goodness and good intentions and real possibility of people who are not like themselves.
Oh.
Because that is really the only way that, I hate the word that's used so often in the media, we're so divided. Yes, it's true, but that word division, it's like there's a rift, a personal and individual rift inside of us, and that's being reflected in the collective. So that disconnection is the real pandemic. Outside of COVID, we've got a dilemma of disconnection, and it's a disease, and that's what has to be healed for our nation to heal.
Well, let's do this, Dena. I want to, because I'm agreeing. We talked about the nation, and we really concur with that. What I want to talk about is something different. It's about the individual. There are certain things that collectively I'm going to have little or no impact on. I'm just going to have to live with and support or not support, do whatever I can. But there is a level of my personal wisdom that will help me deal with social events, personal events, and intrapersonal events, things that are going inside of me. And that is kind of what you wanted to get at today, and that was, what did I learn from 2020 that I can import and apply in my life currently? Is that correct?
There is, bravo, by the way, A+.
A+ on what I'm guessing the
I'm
exercise?
I'm going to send you a star.
Oh, so can we quit now?
No. we must press on, Charlie. There is something called a theme, your year theme. You, Charlie, along with everybody else, has your own personal theme every single year. Inside of COVID, outside of COVID. And what this theme does is it acts as a bouncer at the gate. It's a guidepost. It's a barometer. It's like a color swatch that you get at the paint store, and you take it home and you try to make a match with the color on the swatch and the color that's already in your house. It's all of those things, because when you have this theme in your awareness, it gives you purpose, and it allows you to make choices that are in alignment with where your year, your spirit, your soul, your personality, your life is trying to take you. We have discussed this, and there's something that goes along with the theme once you find your theme, and that is your wisdom elixir. And your wisdom elixir is something that is just a reminder, and it helps to support you in following your theme. So what we're going to do today, Charlie, is find one of your wisdom elixirs, and this is coming from, maybe counterintuitively, one of your big disappointments that you had in 2020. How does that sound, Charlie?
Sounds interesting.
Okay.
Do me a favor, just so I know, because I'm not convinced I know the definition of the word elixir. It's a drink that makes you feel better?
Absolutely, and 100%. We can substitute the word medicine for elixir, or if people don't like that, it can just be wisdom lesson. But yes, an elixir is something I always associate with the gods from a mythological tale. They always seem to have some elixir or have you drink some nectar, and it does a good thing.
Oh, so I like elixir. That's a good
I like
word.
elixir, too.
Yeah, I like that, now that I know for sure.
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
Okay, let's get this show on the road. Let's see what's happening. Let's dissect me.
It won't be painful, Charlie, I promise.
Oh.
I
Okay, I have
promise.
myself all set up for pain. Let's go.
No, I know. We're tossing that. Bye-bye. No pain and punishment. Now, for those of you who are listening, you can do this along with Charlie. I asked Charlie to make a list previously of any disappointments or regrets that he himself experienced in 2020. And I have then asked him, so you can do that. You can make a list while you're listening to Charlie and I do this step, because that's the first step. If you're saying, Dena, I do not want to make a list because COVID was a beast, and all the other things that happened this year were just a lot. So the last thing I want to do is look at those things. I want to make this year stop, and I want to get out alive. Please do not have me write those down. Here's what I want to say to you. The very short-term discomfort you will feel in making this list pales in comparison to the rewards that you will receive from getting your wisdom lesson or your wisdom elixir as a result. If you do not make contact, acknowledge, and let go of those disappointments or regrets from the year, unfortunately, you will drag them with you like a big knapsack of burden, or like chains in a prisoner might wear. They just get dragged into the new thing. You don't get rid of them by not looking at them. Denial is not a powerful coping mechanism in the long run. So that's what I want to say to you, to encourage you to have just the, willingness would be the word, to try it. Okay, so Charlie, you've already done your list. I want you now to pick one thing on your list, one disappointment from the year that we are going to use for the exercise.
Well, I have two. I have one I'm more passionate about, but a second one that I think might be more helpful for our exercise.
Okay.
Let's go with the one I'm more passionate about and see where that leads, because it's very personal, and it's not necessarily related to COVID, although very slightly. But as the audience knows, I'm very close with my son Austin and his wife Maggie, and we spend so much time together. When he was raised, I was a consultant that I probably spent 20 hours a week with him. I could work what I wanted. I worked 25 hours a week so I could spend time with my son. And we continue to be close today. And my son was drafted by the San Diego Padres out of high school, so at 19 years old, and he spent 9.5 years with the Padres system and had really successful years and always defensively successful, not always offensively successful. And during the last-minute trades of everything, he got traded this year after 9 years with the organization, not in the big leagues, but 9 years with the organization, which is a long time in today's baseball. And that was a disappointment to me. And, it has nothing to do with management. He was traded to the Cleveland Indians. They wanted him desperately. They love him as a catcher. They've been trying to get him for a number of years. So he will still be living in San Diego, but he will be playing in Cleveland. And then there's always, you always have to run this thing in your mind. Oh, did they want him? Did they not want him? And, so it's very easy to go into the I am accepted, I am not accepted motif. But I learned to deal with it, but it was a very difficult time, but a strangely learning time for me. Did that help? Did that explain it?
Yeah, that's great. Okay, you did great. So here's my next question. And for anybody listening, if you did your disappointments or regrets list and pick one thing, we just want to pick one thing for this exercise. And you heard Charlie's one thing. Let's take it a little further. What about him being traded disappointed you the most? For example, was it simply that he would be farther away from you? Or was it something else?
This is going to be much more difficult to talk about than I thought. There is always, I think, underlying all of our psychosis is the fear of rejection. And it's the fear of not being wanted, wanting somebody else in your place. And as strong as he is, and as wanted as he is by everybody else, and his acclaims in the sports or in the sport is very high, there is that sadness to the idea that somebody didn't want him, and that he had been with them for 9 years, and the players loved him, and he was really a favorite. But it just, and I understand the business behind the deal, and it was a good business deal. I don't complain about that at all. I don't feel like he was robbed or mistreated or anything. It was still just, I think that's not being accepted was the, and somehow I'm not the one that's not being accepted, but I somehow internalized it.
Yes. Well, this is very normal. He's your son. He's part of you. He's a reflection of you walking around in the world, and how people view him and value him. It has a relationship to how you are viewed and valued in the way that, and this is true, in the way that we operate as human beings. The same is true, for example, if a husband and wife situation, or sometimes even a boyfriend and girlfriend. If we are in relationship with someone, we are identifying with them and are identified as part of them in the world, then how that person is viewed and valued can often impact in our own psyche how we view and value ourselves, or how we think we're being viewed and valued. Makes sense, right?
Yeah, logically it makes sense, but sort of my internal compass. It doesn't make sense. It's crazy to think that way.
Well, we human beings are a mysterious and interesting lot. Charlie, what can I say? We are incredible, and at the core, definitely, there is a great deal of beauty and goodness and capacity. And yet, we have all of these very, maybe one would say, not necessarily logical and very emotional places of connection. So this is nothing for any listener that is thinking, wow, I can really relate to that. I'm sure you can, because we can all relate to you, Charlie. We've all been in your situation, maybe not the exact details. We didn't have a son who was traded, but we can all relate to having someone associated with us and a change in their status, fortune, or location, job, impacted how we were feeling emotionally about ourselves. So having said that, and understanding now that you had some sadness and that the inner conversation deep down was one of wanted, not wanted, accepted, not accepted, valued, not valued, those would be the power dynamics going on in you and the narrative, then here's where the good part comes. The good part is, after connecting to the disappointment, then we identify what it was that we were really feeling about it and around it, and we then move on to the seed of wisdom. Wisdom takes us beyond right and wrong, beyond duality, beyond any kind of critical judgment, and into a place where there is this medicine, this elixir that can uplift and enlighten the whole situation. I'm going to ask you, you can keep your eyes open or closed, but for your listeners, it might be helpful to close their eyes if they're doing this right along with us. And imagine that your seed of disappointment in this one instance that you chose is actually a divine appointment. That within the seed of disappointment, within that lead, is gold. Gold, wisdom, gold, healing energy. And if you can imagine that, and if you can't imagine it, pretend that you can imagine it. It will still work. I want you to also imagine that you are connecting to what I call your God self, and this is the highest and truest part of you. If you don't relate to the word God, you can certainly translate that into a word that works for you. But I'm going to continue to call it your God self, the highest and truest part of you, and this part connects you to the highest stream of wisdom that is possible for you to connect to right now. And from that point of view, I am going to ask you this holy grail question. What wisdom is at the very core of this disappointment? A wisdom that's so powerful that if you could listen to it and take it in, it would change. It would change and shift how you feel about the situation, and it would allow you to move out of repeating the same actions or choices. It would be a huge differentiator, and you could really move on. So I'll ask that again. Imagining that you are connected to the highest stream of wisdom at this time that you can be in connection with, and asking, okay, if I were to go down, down, down into the core, the juicy core of this disappointment, there is something there that is a wisdom that could liberate me from having to repeat this disappointment again, repeat the actions, or at the very least liberate me from my feelings about it. So Charlie, tell us what you've got.
That's a complicated question.
Well, tell us your possible wisdom lesson that you got when you asked that question.
Well, I don't know if there are several answers, but there's parts to the answer.
Great, let's do it.
And the answer is, there's the great value that I've learned in the last 4 or 5 years is acceptance and nonjudgmentalism. I think I've mentioned it. My wife and I have really applied that in our marriage, and our marriage is really just powerful right now. Is that we just sort of accept what the other wants to do, and are trying to remain non-judgmental on it. If there is a judgment, it's done in a kind and what do you think about this sort of way, rather than finger pointing. And I think with this situation with my son, there also comes to mind, 2 or 3 things come to mind. One comes to mind, the difference between the expectation of what it will take to fill a basic human need and the reality of what it takes to fill a basic human need. I think acceptance among, I believe in 3 values: to be seen or heard, to be accepted by something significant, and to be cared for. And when we are not accepted by something we consider significant, that is a major loss. To me, that's one of the 3 big major losses in our psyche. And so that is attacked by this change in jobs. But it comes to, anytime we've seen a change in jobs, we've seen positives come with it, and opportunities come with it that would never come before. So I think the wisdom in me is twofold, and it is with my son as well, to trust in God and that there is a goodness of God, and to wait with patience and kindness and sort of the absence of any anger toward any other people.
Gotcha. And let's make sure that if we do get angry, we can accept it and work to transform it as is appropriate into something creative, so that people listening maybe don't say, "Oh, I want to suppress my anger," because that never works. But here's what I took from that. Tell me if I heard it correctly. Your top wisdom elixirs going into 2021 are trust in God and to wait with patience and kindness, because the outcome, the ending of the story, isn't yet. It's still ongoing. Did I hear that correctly?
That's great. You heard it better than I put it.
And what I also heard in that is that you are really accepting loss as part of your humanity, that you will feel loss. And as you accept loss, and that loss is part of your human journey, you're also not prejudging the future outcome of that loss. You can accept the loss, you can perhaps grieve it. In this case, might be appropriate, grieving the change, grieving his leaving, anything associated with it. That clears the way for you not to be future catastrophizing, I like to call it, and bringing any of the loss into the future. So you can let it go, and you don't have to prejudge any future outcome. You can stay in the present, as you mentioned, trusting in God and waiting with patience, having kindness as you wait with patience, and participating as the outcome unfolds.
Dena, do you have that written down?
I did. I wrote it down for you, Charlie. You know I did.
So can you copy that to me, and I'll put it in the show notes?
Absolutely.
Dena, we are approaching our time. It is it's always so wonderful to chat with you. Your insights, I think you're definitely a healer, and you're working to heal our divide. You're working to heal individuals and to restore people back to just the intent of enjoying and participating in life. I so appreciate you, Dena. You really are the best.
Oh, thank you, Charlie. I appreciate you. And to wrap up for your listeners, if they followed along with the exercise, it's got 3 parts. Connect is the first part, and that is connecting to the disappointments and giving themselves permission to really go there. The second is also connecting, and that is to their seed of wisdom and coming out with their top wisdom elixir. And the last one is commit, and that is committing to a new choice and new actions based on that wisdom elixir. So I'm rooting for everyone in your audience to get the proper support they need, even if it's just grabbing a friend to be an accountability buddy with them in 2021 to help keep them on purpose with practicing this wisdom.
That's great. Thank you. We'll close with that, Dena. Thank you so much, and I pray that everybody does the same thing. Dena Crowder, thank you so much for spending time with me today. I also want to thank our listeners for tuning into The Next Chapter with Charlie, and please be sure to check us out at our website, thenextchapter.life. And until next, this is Charlie Hedges signing off. Bye for now.